Good morning, everyone. Jim Lard joining you live from Diriomo, Nicaragua. Let's get going on live on Instagram. We're going to jump right into it today. There's a lot to cover here. And we'll skip all the usual shenanigans and we'll get right to the topic at hand. So, gyms on every corner, yet obesity is an all-time high. What is going on? There's more gyms than ever. Back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, gyms were rare, yet obesity was literally next to zero. There was not obese people. If you look at pictures of like Woodstock, you look at pictures of the beach in the 1950s, 60s, even 70s, it just wasn't obesity. Okay. So let's talk a little context here. I'm a meathead, retired meathead, I guess. I'll always kind of be a meathead teacher that has coached people like for the last 30 years, all different shapes and sizes, all different abilities, men, women, kids, teams, colleges, high school teams, you name it, I've coached it, okay? This is my take on this from observation of working over the last 30 years and my own health struggles with autoimmune disease, ulcerative colitis, with recurring staph infections from a pedicure that I'd gotten, and then multiple car accidents, health issues, head injuries, all the things. So this is a combination of me working with thousands of people over the last 30 years, my own health experience, and I think my perspective is going to make it much easier for you to understand why this is going on. So I think the number one reason, okay, and you'll hear everybody, it's like the refined foods, it's the chemicals in the food, it's the this, it's the that. It's a combination of a whole bunch of stuff that leads to this shit storm of disaster, like this symphony of destruction, to steal a term from Megadeth. I'll send you a check, Megadeth. It's a collaboration of things. But once we get through this, what I think is the root of this, people will be just like, well, it's because people eat too much hyper palatable food. Yes, that's a big part of it. But there's a foundational reason why this is happening. And it's a reason why people are taking GLPs, because they can't stop eating. They have no will. They have no willpower. They can't control what they put in their mouth. The number one thing, I think, if you look at people in the 50s, the 60s, even the 70s, they lived a more outdoor life. Okay. When the TV went off at 10 o'clock, there was bars. There was 3 channels. There were bars, and it was time to go to bed. People were not up on their phone until 2 o'clock in the morning on TikTok, on Instagram, whatever platform you use. Broken circadian rhythm leads to all sorts of increases of disease, insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, the inability to control appetite. All these things go back to broken circadian rhythm. The fact that people don't get outside, they live 90% of their day indoors. So you have a broken circadian rhythm, it's going to make it, you're going to want to eat more, sugary, comfort type foods to medicate yourself. The other component of this, where it gets a little complicated and they go down this rabbit hole, like I had somebody this morning reach out to me. It was like, what about easy water? What about all this stuff? If you read Gerald Pollack's work, he talks about your body with sunlight makes easy water, which basically your body uses as a battery to store energy, essentially from the sun. Okay. Basically, that just means you need to get outside more. Some people need more sun. If you're darker skinned, you need more sun than somebody like me who's light skinned, right? So you're going to get energy from the sun in the form of, stored electrons in easy water. So you don't need to like go down that rabbit hole. It's just more sun is better to a certain point. Obviously, you can get too much of anything. So you need to get outside. You need to get your light, skin on your skin, sun on your skin. Sorry. This is the first conversation I've had with anybody this morning. So I'm a little blah, 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 blah. You need to get sun on your skin, and most humans get none. We've been told the sun is evil. We've been told that that you're going to spontaneously combust if you get sunshine without sunscreen. And the truth is, if you avoid the sun, you have basically the same mortality rate as a smoker. So that's a big part of it as well. And so you're not getting as much energy, from the sun. Your vitamin D's off, your circadian rhythm's off. So the whole system is in disarray. And that's just going to lead to everything being in disarray. Oops, sorry. I mean, your digestive system works on a circadian clock, everything. Like, that's why night shift workers, they die younger. Okay. So that's in dismay. The other factor is this is going to get worse and worse and worse because kids don't play outside anymore. They're on their screen and people aren't as active. And it's not the calorie burn that's the issue. It's the aerobic fitness that's the issue. And it's the strategy people use. When you grow up and you play and you dance and you play games, your body, if I watch my puppy, he play fights with all the other dogs. He plays, he runs around, he falls, he trips. That's the body figuring out how it's going to move. You're out in the environment, you're being exposed to different pathogens, different things. You're developing your immune system, you're developing your brain. Kids are living in this like air-conditioned, controlled environment. They don't get outside. They're not climbing trees. They're not playing. They're not developing a movement system. So without that, your body is having to use much higher threshold systems to do something that would be really easy. So when you have a lot of movement options, you don't have to use emergency strategies to basically function. But when you don't have movement options and you haven't spent a lot of time outside and you haven't developed an athletic base, you have to use extension-based strategies. You have to jam into joints and capsules. Your body just has to work a lot harder to do low-level activity, if that makes sense. And then the aerobic part of it, when you have good aerobic fitness, your body's able to produce energy more efficiently and easily and convert energy. You don't have to go glycolytic as quickly. So because of the circadian rhythm being broken, because of a lack of play, and because of low aerobic capacity, your body is in this constant state of rev. I would compare it to like if you drive a manual transmission and you've got 6 gears and you only have 3 or 4 and you're having to ride down the highway. Okay. That's my take on that. Okay. And you can argue with me about it. That's totally fine. But that's why I think modern humans are under a low level chronic stress constantly because of the lack of sleep, broken circadian rhythm, because of the lack of aerobic fitness, and because of the lack of movement, would be the word I'm looking for, literacy. Their body is having to work much harder than it should to do simple tasks, just to survive. Okay. That is one of the reasons why we've got the food industry, which knows that if you combine lots of fat with lots of carbs, with lots of salt, it makes you eat more stuff, right? And there was some of that stuff available in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It just wasn't in super quantities. And most of the food was meat, potatoes, simple stuff. People still had apple pies and all that stuff. But because people were active outside, they had good vitamin D levels. They were getting in the sun. They had good movement literacy. They weren't chronically in this constant state of low-level stress from, being on the phone, all those things. They were less likely to medicate themselves with food. They would eat an ice cream and be like, that was really great. That was really good. I don't need like 10 servings, right? Not to mention the food back then, the soil was much simpler. It was much better. There was a lot more local farms. So there was a lot of nutrition in a lot of the food. And we won't go down that rabbit hole. But basically today, people are eating exorbitant amounts of food to make up for the fact that their mitochondria aren't able to produce as much energy. They're not getting as much sun. Their circadian rhythm is broken. So they're having to eat more. And not only that, to make themselves feel better because they're constantly in this low-level stress state. So they're constantly eating more. And the food industry wants you to eat more and more and more. So then what happens is people are like, well, I've got to start exercising. So they have a horrible movement library because they didn't play as a kid. And then they have no aerobic fitness. And then they jump into like, spinning class or whatever. And they try to drive a broken car faster, and it just doesn't work. So the idea is if you want to take somebody who's in a bad place, one, let's fix their circadian rhythm. Let's get them going outside a couple times a day, right? Let's get them eating some protein. Let's get them, let's get them walking. Let's raise their aerobic fitness level so their body doesn't have to work as hard. And then let's do some things that increase their movement literacy so that they don't have to work as hard. They raise their aerobic fitness level. They're getting outside. All of a sudden, the machine doesn't have to work as hard just to function day to day. The stress levels come down. All of a sudden, a lot of the food cravings go away. You're not over craving food. And so a lot of times intense exercise tends to push people even further off the cliff. Every time a woman comes to me that has a hard time losing body fat, it's usually because she's doing lots of HIIT and an ultra low carb diet. And that's usually what happens. And then you get them back off the HIIT, you get them to do some more aerobic conditioning, you get them to lift some weights, you get them to walk, you get them eating real food, and all of a sudden, whoa, they start losing weight, right? Or losing body fat. So I've seen that time and time and time again. Women don't handle calorie restriction and fasting quite as well as men do. And they also rebound a lot harder too, because, the body's like, oh, wow, I'm losing weight. I need to survive. I need to have this emergency energy storage. When I do get some extra calories, I'm going to store as much of it as possible for a rainy day, because it's about survival. It's not about what you look like. So those are basically the foundation of, like, there's gyms on every corner. People are training, but our world is basically pushing us into this state of being in a really bad place. And of course, the pharmaceutical industry comes out and says, we have the solution. We have a GLP, which is going to basically keep you from overeating. And I'm not going to say if it's good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just going to say there's a lot of people that are taking it in big boluses and ending up with some pretty significant side effects. So do your research. If you do decide to do it, microdose it. This obviously isn't medical advice. This is educational purposes only. Consult your doctor. But people that I've seen that have done well with it have taken microdoses. They've also really worked on improving their lifestyle. Because what happens is if you take a GLP and then you just don't have an appetite and you continue eating crap, you're just going to be malnourished. You're going to lose a lot of muscle mass. So you got to lift weights. You got to change your habits if you're going to do it. But I would argue that you can get just as good of results by fixing your circadian rhythm, by improving, your lifestyle. I've had thousands of people make dramatic results without things like GLPs and things like that. So it's a tool, but it's just interesting that we've created this modern world that basically turns people into human vacuum cleaners. And all of a sudden, the pharmaceutical industry has this amazing cure for it. I find that very, very interesting. And of course, the people that are into high levels of performance, bodybuilders, et cetera, are using it to help them get ultra shredded, which is fine. I mean, I can't really say anything about that because I've used performance enhancing drugs for a long time, and I'm very open and honest about that. My only point is don't let don't build your foundation of your home on tools. Build your foundation on, getting outside 3 times a day, protein at every meal, getting the lights off at night, high quality water, good social connection, strength and conditioning program that is at your level, that challenges you but doesn't wreck you. That should be the foundation. And then if you want to throw some supplementation, or you want to throw this or that or whatever you want to do in there, that's where the tools come in. And you want to do a couple things at a time so you can actually see what's working. You have people that are on, I've worked with people that are on thousands of dollars of peptides, thousands of dollars of supplements. They have no idea what's working and what isn't. And then their system, a lot of times, is totally overrun because they're on so much stuff. So I don't think I've ever had a client where making things more complicated was the answer. 98% of the time, it's about simplification and consistency. So I hope that totally makes sense. That's just my kind of thought on it. It's just that our modern life is just creating this symphony of destruction for obesity. Being able to like have food delivered to your house, cheap, easy dopamine, scrolling through your phone, not having to work for your dopamine. That leads to wanting more dopamine for free, which leads to like eating more ice cream. It leads to more caffeine. It leads to all those things, more porn, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it just becomes really hard to shut that off, particularly if you're sleep deprived and your circadian rhythm is wrecked. So in the end, it doesn't really matter what you do. Fixing your circadian rhythm, I think, is number one. Even if you're not in a good place, even just getting outside a couple times a day, getting your light in your eyes, and then getting the lights off at night, that alone right there is going to take you in the right direction. And then building your aerobic fitness, then building a base foundation of movement. And it doesn't take that much time to do these things. And then just making sure that the exercise is appropriate for you. And if you do decide to do high intensity work, make sure you have the aerobic base to handle it. And then make sure you sprinkle it in. It should be a tool. It shouldn't be foundational. The foundation is the daily activity, the circadian rhythm, the protein, the real food, the community. All those things are foundational. And everything on top of that is your tools, which you use to kind of make the process a little faster. And so there's my thoughts on the matter. I have two groups. Love for you to join them. I have a men's over 40 group where we talk about a lot of this stuff. We talk about, how to adjust. You've worked out your whole life. You're beat up. You're banged up. How do you adjust your training? We focus a lot on that. We focus a lot on basics and fundamentals. I've got a men's, small group that I work with as well. A lot of them are super high achievers that have basically burned the candle at both ends and in the middle. You can join that by going to Vitality Brotherhood and sign up for that. Then I just launched the Vitality Sisterhood. We got about 100 women in that. We got our first coffee call tomorrow morning. Our coffee call in the Vitality Brotherhood is on Wednesday. The coffee call in Vitality Sisterhood is tomorrow. It's completely free. And the whole point of the Vitality Sisterhood is to help women learn. Like, there's a big, like in the fitness industry, there's this push for women to do like aerobics classes and like spinning classes and more endurance type activities, which makes sense because women tend to be better at those. But women really need to do some form of strength training. And they also need to focus on not trying to be as skinny as possible, because the fitness industry for years is like, or in general is like, you got to get skinny, you got to be skinny. And it's like, we want to lift, we want to nourish, we want to become more resilient. So the community is about building health, about building resiliency, as opposed to like, I want to be as skinny as possible and I'm going to work out to exhaustion. And the vast majority of my clients over the last 30 years have been women. And most of them have been hard charging women, and the men too. Most of my clients are clients that have a really hard time shutting it off. And I think that's super duper important. That kind of goes into the whole thing of like, you have a low aerobic fitness, you don't move around a lot, your circadian rhythm is broken, you've got this cortisol, and then your mind is spinning and you don't make time for silence. You're always scrolling through your phone. That leads into over medicating of food and all that good stuff, exhaustion, hormone depletion, et cetera, et cetera. So the majority of the clients that are attracted to me are either they haven't done anything in a long time and they need help getting in the right direction, and they're overwhelmed because there's so much information that they start off way too quickly and then they get themselves in trouble. Or the people that I take them into a forest, there's like 100 trees, and I say, okay, here's an axe. I need you to cut down 2 trees for me. I'll be back at the end of the day. And I get back and they've not only cut the 2 trees down, they've cut every tree in the forest down. I was like, I only asked for 2. And they're like, but I was bored. I didn't have anything to do. And I had this axe, and I thought I would just cut all of them down. And so those are kind of the type that I attract, is like, knowing when to rest, knowing when to push. Most people in today's modern world are kind of stuck in this chronic state of go, go, go. Might not be doing as much physically, but it's like, I compare it to getting in your car, revving the shit out of your engine all day and never going anywhere and wondering why you're tired. So that's generally what I have going on group wise. And I have a women's small group coaching group that I work with, and I do work with a few people individually. But you can actually find both of those groups. If you go to vitalitybrotherhood.com, there's a sisterhood button at the top that'll take you to the group. There's a coaching button if you want to book a call, learn about coaching with me. But I'd love to have you in those groups. Thanks for being here today. If you're on Instagram and you're watching this, you can comment sisterhood in the comments and you'll get a link to the group, and you can contact brotherhood in the comments and you'll get a link to the men's group. If you're on YouTube watching this, the links will be in the description below. So have yourself a great day. Make sure you take the time to get outside. I hope that made you think about things in a little bit different way. Just remember, I'm a little humble and lowly meathead who just is thinking about things a little differently. And I think once you get the perspective that it's like an entire cascade of things that are contributing to this, as opposed to like just seed oils or just like, hyper palatable food, or it's the food industry, or it's this or it's that. It's really a cascade of a whole bunch of different factors. And if we can like move the needle on some of these things, it's going to be much easier for us to go in the right direction. And if you do use some of the tools provided by modern medicine, make sure you use them to your advantage, and you don't basically use them in a way that just suppresses your appetite and ends up destroying your muscle mass and destroying yourself in the meantime. So have yourself a great day. Make sure you get outside today. You deserve it. Your body needs it. And we'll see you again soon.